Yes, we're live. Hello, viewers, wherever you're joining from. Once you join in, please let us know where you'll be joining from. And thank you for joining us. We are as excited as you are to interview our guests. I'll tell you a bit about our guest in a minute. Our guest is Detola Amure, and she is blessed to be multidimensional. I like that. There are different parts to this woman. She is the CEO of Super Working Mom. She is a productivity and women leadership transformational coach, an advanced certified grief recovery specialist, a member of the John Maxwell coaching, speaking, and teaching team, international speaker, host of the Birth Your Dreams with Detola on YouTube, co-host of When Life Stops podcast. I've listened to a few of them, and author of 4 books. And she's so busy.
Super busy, super working mom.
Super working mom. And I think it was on that platform I met you, and you are really busy, ma'am. She is married with 4 children under 11, one of whom lives in heaven. I like that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
You.
And I don't know if you would be happy to share. You said you're married with 4 children and one lives in heaven. If you're happy to share about that, we would be happy to hear a bit about it.
Oh, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your platform. I am so excited and honored to be here. So thank you for that. Yes, so actually, I do have to update my profile because my daughter turned 11 a few months ago. So I'm sure she won't be happy that I haven't updated. How to say it's now 4 under 12, no longer under 11.
Under 11.
I'm making a mental note to update my Yes, so again, I've got 4 children. I'm married to an amazing man. Our first daughter is 11. Our second, our boy is 7. He'll be turning 8 in a few months. And then in 2018, I had twins, a boy and a girl. So that was a surprise, but we almost quickly embraced having twins. But sadly, in December the same year, when they turned 7 months, in fact, I think it was a week. It was a week or 2 after they turned 7 months. 2 days before Christmas, my baby boy passed away suddenly. We called the ambulance. They couldn't resuscitate him. I mean, they tried. Took him to the hospital. We had just come back from church, so it was a Sunday I would never forget in my life. He didn't. I tried to wake him up from his nap. He didn't wake up. When they took him to the hospital and tried, they tried for hours, but nothing. And I think that was the beginning of the new chapter of my life. So since this happened in 2018, yeah.
So sorry to hear that.
Thank you so much.
Wow. Tell us then. I know grief means different things to different people, and considering that you have experienced it firsthand, what's your definition of grief?
Okay, so I have 2 definitions that I'd like to share. The first one is that grief is a normal and natural reaction to significant loss of any kind. So first of all, it is normal and it is natural. But everything about the way we deal with grief as a society makes it appear that it's not normal and it's not natural. And if you notice, I said it is a reaction to a significant emotional loss. So whether it is death, most people think we only grieve when someone has died. And definitely people grieve when someone has died. But more often, a lot more people grieve when maybe they've gone through a divorce, maybe they've moved home, maybe they've when there's a change. So and that leads me to my second definition. Grief is also the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. Wow. So if you were married before, that was a familiar pattern, and suddenly it has changed, right? So that feeling, that conflicting feeling of maybe someone was in a bad marriage, and now they are no longer in that bad marriage. So in some ways they are happy they are no longer there, but on the other side, they no longer have that identity as a married person.
Wow.
That's right.
Do you see what I mean?
Right. That's right.
When it comes to job loss, maybe you are in a stressful job, you lost the job. The conflicting feeling is, oh, I no longer have to go to that stressful job. But then on the other hand, my source of livelihood has been cut off. That feeling is grief. When you move home, the feeling of this is what I knew before. This is how I used to do things before. Now I've moved to a new environment. I've moved to, I've changed what I used to know before. That is grief.
Wow.
Awesome.
Right now, many of us are grieving because the life we knew before COVID no longer exists. So everyone is grieving in one way or the other.
Interesting.
That's my definition of it.
Interesting. Spot on. That really tells you that, grief is beyond what we think.
Yes.
Most time when we hear grieving, we often talk about the normal loss, but there are different stages of loss. We're all grieving in different way or the other.
Yeah.
And one thing is that when we are not conscious of this, so how do you think this impacts on people in relationship generally?
Oh, in lots of ways, in lots and lots of ways. And the truth is, because many people are grieving and they have unresolved grief, meaning that they've not dealt with the emotions that were attached to whatever it was that happened to them.
Yeah.
They've carried it, they've suppressed it, and now in other relationships, whether in their marriage or with other people, they act out. They act out based on the unresolved grief, but they don't even realize that it's because they are grieving.
Wow.
So you just find that you're in an environment, you're always angry, you get triggered. Someone says something, you're triggered. Someone does something, you're triggered. And you're wondering, what is wrong with me?
Wow.
If you look deeply, there's probably unresolved grief somewhere. Something probably happened to you as a child. Again, there's tangible losses and we have intangible losses, such as loss of innocence. When someone gets abused as a child, that is your loss of innocence, loss of your childhood, right? Loss of safety, all of those things. And so many people are going around with unresolved grief. They're not even aware, but it shows up. It shows up in your relationships. It shows up in your marriage. It shows up anywhere. So, and that is why, unresolved grief is, I think, a global problem for a lot of people. Yeah.
Awesome.
I like you captured on the point someone mentioned to me earlier in the week, and she was talking about oftentimes our emotions take a lot of heat and we are unaware, because you've even talked about tangible and intangible. So sometimes those hits impact on the relationships around you without you even knowing you're reacting to something. Very good. Very good.
I was going to ask, apart from people snapping, people just withdrawing without explanation, what other signs of grieving do you often observe?
So before I share the signs, I wanted to mention that many people think that grief has stages. So I don't know if you've heard that before.
Yes, 5 stages of grief, 7 stages.
Yeah.
Some people will say
it's a myth. There's nothing like 5 stages. There's nothing like, because first of all, grief is unique, right?
Wow.
What happened to you was unique to you. So if you look at 2 siblings, right? If 2 siblings lost their parents, the relationship they had with their dad or their mom who died will be different. So they would grieve different. Or if you look at couples, the relationship you had with that child who died will be different. So you're going to grieve differently. So when we try and put people in a box and say you must be at the stage of anger or the stage of denial, it's first of all, you're putting unnecessary pressure on them, and then people put themselves under pressure because they feel like I'm supposed to have left this stage by now, but I'm still, in fact, I'm not even in this stage. I don't even know what I'm feeling.
There's something wrong with me here.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, even the woman who came up with the stages of grief, Elizabeth Cooper-Ross, when she wrote the stages of grief, it was around someone who was told they were going to die, not the feelings of you losing someone. Does that make sense? So it was she wrote the book around someone has just been given a diagnosis and you're going to die. So it was those stages. That was the stages she was referring to. But then everyone has taken those stages and said, oh, when you're grieving, you must go through denial, anger, all of those stages, acceptance.
Yes.
So there are no stages because everyone will grieve differently. So we can't categorize grief. That said, when someone is grieving, some of the responses that you would see are things like reduced concentration. Their productivity level goes down because they cannot concentrate. And that's an area that I am passionate about because I work with women. Like you read in my bio, I started off as a productivity coach. But I began to realize that a lot of people, they had big goals, they had big dreams and all of those things. But for some reason, we're not able to do them. Not because they were not competent enough or whatever. But when I dug deeper, and after being on this journey for a while, I realized it's because they have unresolved grief. They can't concentrate. They can't stay long enough to hold on to, they start something and then they don't finish it. It's because there's probably unresolved grief. So reduced concentration, a sense of numbness, your emotion is like, oh, I can't come and kill myself type thing, because you've been healed emotionally. Disrupted sleeping patterns, they can't sleep. When you can't sleep, you're just thinking and thinking and thinking. Eating habits, when you have when your eating habits change, some might not eat, some will eat a lot, and then there are other side effects of gaining weight and all of those things. So can you see, like, unresolved grief is a big problem. And then you have that roller coaster of emotional energy. Today you're happy, tomorrow you're down, you're just all over the place. So those are some of the responses that grievers have.
I like what you shared earlier, so apt, because it just reminded me of an experience when I was younger. One of my friend's dad passed, and there were her siblings were crying, but she was just numb. She wouldn't cry. She was just there, and they were hitting her more like, you have to cry now, otherwise it's going to affect you later. So this is you saying there are no stages. That she wasn't crying at that moment does not mean she wasn't badly hit. Yes. Very good.
So everyone grieves differently. Some people will cry outwardly, some wouldn't. Whether you cry or you don't cry, that is how you know to grieve. So we can't force people to cry, and we shouldn't stop people from crying. Do you see what I mean?
Wow.
So it goes both ways. Yeah.
Awesome. So that's also what's the example that came to my mind is sometimes when probably the loss of a child, like you said, the relationship couples will have with that particular child will be different, obviously. But expecting your spouse to just be, come on, just snap out of it. Let's we can make another baby. How insensitive can that be?
So if we, interestingly, I read somewhere once, or I think I heard someone say this once, that it is not usually the fact that a child died that causes marital distress. It is usually a judgment on how the other person is grieving. Right? So because your wife is grieving outwardly, and again, men and women grieve differently. Women are more likely prone to cry and wail and all of those things, and the men tend to grieve more, by themselves internally and just process it by themselves. So a husband not happy with the way the wife is grieving and saying, you cry too much, why are you always crying? Or the wife accusing the husband that, I've never even seen you cry, I don't think you love that child as much as that is only going to cause more marital distress. Right? Couples need to give each other space to grieve the way they know how to. So because you are outwardly grieving does not mean that because your husband isn't crying like you are, it doesn't mean he's not grieving. He is.
Awesome.
And because your wife is more outward doesn't mean, woman, can you like get a grip on yourself? No.
Awesome.
We need to, couples need to get to a point where they respect the way their partner is grieving the loss of that child.
Brilliant.
So is it possible to say there is a way to overcome, is there like a sure way of overcoming grief?
I love that question. I love it because most people believe that you cannot overcome grief. you cannot recover from grief. This is now your life. You are going to carry this grief for the rest of your life. You know, you hear people say, "Oh, you can never recover. You will never, yeah, you will never be the same." That is definitely true.
Yes, yes.
But recovery is possible because I recovered.
Wow. Awesome.
Oh, wow.
And
Awesome.
and I think again, it's because society has not taught us how to deal with losses, right? So they just expect you to carry this burden for the rest of your life. And when when my son passed away, I was in so much pain, as in physical and I could feel the emotional pain I was carrying in my chest. I could feel it in my shoulders. I felt like I was carrying a weight, and I thought to myself, "Is this how I am going to be for the rest of my life?"
Wow.
Because I've always said you can never get over the death of a child, and I said, in as much as this is a painful incident, I want to be able to live a fulfilled life. I don't want this loss to weigh me down completely, that I'm now a shadow of myself. So I went searching. I went searching for help. I tried counseling. It didn't really work. But when I found out about the grief recovery method, oh my goodness, it changed my life. And how did it change my life? Because I was able to take the right action steps to recovery. There's a myth that says that time heals all wounds. Time does not.
No.
I've seen people who lost loved ones 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and when they talk about that loss today, it's like it happened yesterday.
Exactly.
And you ask yourself, is this how I want to continue for the rest of my life?
Awesome.
Right? So recovery is possible, and the sure way to recovery is taking the right action steps. And what is recovery? Because you might be thinking, grief recovery. What does that even mean? What does that look like? What it looks like is feeling better. What that looks like is finding new meaning for life without the fear of being hurt again.
Wow. Finding meaning.
It's still, it's acknowledging that today you can be sad from time to time, but that you can still talk about those feelings, no matter how people around you react. Some people can't talk about something that happened ages ago.
Exactly.
If recovery means finding new meaning for life, without the fear of being hurt again. And again, it's something that we should have acquired as kids, but no one taught us how to. No one taught us how to recover. Society, parents, they taught us how to acquire stuff, but no one has taught us how to deal with disappointment, how to deal with losing things. There is a way to recover. It is not easy, but it involves a series of small choices that you can take to help you complete with the emotional pain that you felt as a result of that loss. I know I said too much in there, but I hope
that's brilliant.
Because I think you've touched on some questions we had earlier, which is there a right and a wrong way to grieve though? I think she further expressed her thoughts where she said, or rather, is there a healthy and unhealthy way to grieve? That will mean that if you see your loved one grieving in an unhealthy way, you should do something about it.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Yes, there is an unhealthy way to grieve, which is, and there is an unhealthy way to grieve, which is first for not acknowledging the pain you are in. And brushing it on, you just bury it and say, no, it's fine. I'm good. I'm fine. And you're not fine. You just buried it. People, an unhealthy way of grieving could look like looking for short-term, something that we call short-term energy relieving behaviors.
Wow.
Things like shopping.
Please, can you write that for us, please, in the comment section? That's a lovely one.
Can I write comments in here? I don't know if I can.
No, not you. I'm saying our audience. Yes.
It's called short-term energy relieving behaviors, STERBs, STERB. That's what it's called. And so what that looks like is you shop a lot. You shop. You love that feeling, but it's short-term. For a few hours, you feel better. You're distracted, or you could be watching TV. You just sit on your couch and watch Netflix from morning till night. For some, it's exercise. They just go to the gym. They're like, I need to, I need to let go of this energy.
Yeah.
For some, it's busy. You walk.
Walk. Yeah.
Because you don't want to feel the pain. You don't want to acknowledge the pain. So you do anything else to distract you away from that pain, right? Some, it is eating a lot. All you do is when you feel bad, you just find something to eat, because again, it pushes down the emotion. You feel better for a short while, but then before you know it, you're back. So for me, one of the things I did was I walked a lot. When my son passed away, I was running my business, but for some reason, my creative brain just went dead. So I took a job, right? I was just going to work. I didn't to talk to anybody. I'm sure people used to look at me and wonder, I'll just go and do my work. But what happened was I would work. I would crash and burn, go to my GP. My GP will sign me off work for like 2 weeks. So I would stay at home, look for other short-term energy relieving things, go back to work, work for a few weeks, crash again. So it was just like up and down, up and down, up and down. And after a while, I was like, I can't continue like this. I need a more permanent solution to grieve, right? And so, there is the unhealthy way of grieving, which is looking for other, putting all these other things that you do that just distracts you from your pain. But the right way is taking action, acknowledging your pain. Sorry, hold on. Acknowledging, the feelings that you're feeling and getting complete with your loss. Yeah.
Awesome. This is so important. Why? Because there's something we often say when we coach people in our what we call intimacy builder program, for couples or for singles. We notice that the quality of who you are is what you bring into a relationship. So that's what makes a relationship what it is. That's what makes a marriage what it is. So if you are unhealthy emotionally, you can't really build intimacy. You can't really connect.
Exactly.
So that leads me to a question that I had in mind. I wanted to ask you. So what do you say to women who have grieved the right way, but for some reason they are feeling guilty for stopping the grieving process? They feel that ending or healing the grieving process means that they are forgetting their child.
Wow, fantastic. And you know what? That is why a lot of people are refusing to recover, because they feel that when they recover, it means they are saying goodbye to their child. It means they are saying they are going to forget their child. But firstly, you can never, ever, ever forget your child. You carry that child for 9 months, right? And you birth that child. So that alone, you can't forget your child. When you recover from that loss, like I have, what you are doing is saying goodbye to unmet dreams, unmet hopes, unmet expectations. You're saying goodbye to the pain that you felt. You're saying goodbye to a yesterday you would never have. I would never see my baby boy grow older. I would never see him go to school, play with his siblings, go to uni, get married, and all of those things. And it is those unmet hopes and dreams that make people grieve and sad. But recovery means I've come to terms with that, and I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to have a chance. This is never going to happen, but I'm now okay with it. It doesn't mean you will no longer be sad, or that when it's your child's birthday, or the day he was buried, or the day he died, that you won't be sad. You will be, but you are not in pain. So if I use myself as an example, again, remember we said grief is unique to everyone. The stabbing pain I felt in my chest, when I recovered, it left. I no longer had that stabbing pain. But of course, I still talk about my son, and sometimes I see tears coming, but I'm not in agony. I am not, I can talk about him with a smile. When people are grieving, they can't talk about their loved ones. Or or that's all they talk about. That's what I mean. So it's like an extreme. Some don't even want to talk about. They're like, no, we're done with that. Or some, that's all they talk about. So it is about, don't think that you healing is going to make you forget your child. And again, another thing is a lot of people are already comfortable with that pain. And I've heard people say this to me, like, so when I let go of this pain, what am I going to do? Like, this is me. This is my identity. I feel like, it's like you're letting go of this pain that you've used you've used it as a crutch, you've used it as whatever.
Exactly. The familiar place.
It's familiar.
Mm.
So if I let go of this pain, who am I going to be? Who that anxiety would come. Like, what's going to happen when I let go of this pain? But remember, it is the pain you're letting go of. You're not letting go of the memories. You're not letting go of the child. You're not letting go of the child would always be your child. So you're not letting go of the love and all of those things. It is the pain, the undelivered emotional communications that you're letting, or that you are competing with. Yeah.
Wow, this is so powerful, because I think this also impacts on couples who lose their spouses, but they don't want to remarry because they feel that remarrying will mean I'm being disloyal to him or to her. You have a question like the flash?
Yes, there's a very good question, and I think this was because you talked about training children, teaching children on how to process loss, disappointment. So the question is, how can we be proactive in helping our children learn how to handle loss in a healthy way, even before bigger life losses happen? I think it's a very good question.
Yeah, fantastic question. And I think by, first of all, allowing our children to express their emotions and not shut them down. We are so quick to shut our children down, right? Even me, I'm guilty of that. Your child is crying and you quickly want to shut them down. And you're like, oh, don't worry. So, for example, maybe a child loses, maybe the child had a pet and then the pet dies. We are so quick to say, oh, I'll get you another pet. But no, another pet is not the same pet.
Not the same pets. Exactly.
It's about allowing them to cry and share whatever it is they want to share about the pet that died. You know, allowing them to grieve, acknowledge their feelings. If you notice a child going on and on and on about something that has happened, it means they've not been heard. Once they've been heard, and once you allow them to acknowledge, you allow them to acknowledge, name their feeling and acknowledge it, you most likely see that they won't necessarily talk about it that way, that they were just going on and on.
Exactly.
So things like moving. Before you move, let the child know this is what's going to happen. Involve the child. When they move and they cry and say, "Oh, I miss my friend," don't say things like, "Don't worry, you make new friends." No, that's you trying to replace their loss. So we shouldn't say things like, "Oh, don't worry, but you make new friends." "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine." No, allow them to talk about how they feel. Right? So it's about, that's usually the first thing, not letting them bury it. Because when you tell a child once that, "Don't worry, I'll get you a new pet," or "I'll get you a new whatever," in their mind, they're basically telling them, "Oh, that's how to deal with loss. Replace it." Right?
Wow.
Or if they don't feel bad, you're telling them that feeling bad is bad. Is a bad thing. No, it's an emotion. Feeling sad it's a sad emotion, but it's an emotion that God gave us. Even God feels sad sometimes. So allow the child to feel sad. Allow them to acknowledge what it is they've lost. So, let them ask questions around it, and let them talk. Because once a child talks and they're heard, it helps them to deal with their grief quicker. And there's a book called Helping Children with Loss that you can get. It's by the Grief Recovery Institute. It's a fantastic book because it helps you teach your child how to deal with loss from a very young age.
Wow, that's so powerful, because sometimes parents focus on themselves. Oh, I'm losing a child. You're not thinking about his siblings. Are they also grieving? How do you also cater for them? And then also the other scenario that popped up in my head is that sometimes people get a job and they move to another country and they just pull their partner along. Not thinking of this partner has a social environment, they have friends, they have people they just read, they have job, they are planted emotionally, and you just yank them off because you got this fantastic offer, So some of this also seriously impacts on relationships as well. So you just wonder, why is she not happy for me? No, it's not about you. She's happy that you got the job.
Exactly.
But like you said, grief is this most conflicting emotion. So on one side, she's happy that we are moving forward, we are moving up the financial ladder, but she's also feeling disconnected from this community that she's familiar with. I mean, this is really powerful, bigger than we even think. Please, if you have any question, please post your questions. If you can share it with your social media, on the social media platform, we really appreciate that. Let's make this message go much bigger. So now, one of the things about grieving is that it's good to have a support system. I'm sure you had some support system while you were grieving. So what happens to someone who feels that her best friend is no longer picking her call, is not connecting with her, and she's feeling lost, or he is feeling lost,
Especially if the best friend used to be there for you.
Absolutely.
And then something happens. And it's like,
oh. This is interesting.
Something is coming. Something is coming.
Well, maybe because I experienced that. So
wow.
Again, I didn't realize that it was. I didn't realize that it was common until I called another friend, Stella, my co-host on the When Life Stops podcast. And by the way, if you please go listen to the episodes there, because we share a lot more. We share around, we share around dealing with loss. Some of the things we talked about, how it impacts marriage, we really go in depth. So when Life Stops podcast, so I remember calling Stella and I'm like, oh my god,
the link after the session.
Okay, great.
Okay, so all of you, we're going to leave the link and all our social media stuff. We're going to leave it in the comment section. Yeah.
So I remember calling her and saying, oh my god, Abi, is it me? Is it me? Is it something I said or did? And she was like, it happened to her as well. And that's because trauma, loss has the potential to change you. Remember I said before that loss will change you. It will definitely change you. Yeah. The person you used to be before your child died no longer exists. So it's like they're dealing with a new version of you. So some people may be able to handle it and some might not. Again, because as a society, we've not been taught how to deal with loss, right? So your friend probably doesn't have the right words to say. They don't know what to say to you. And they find it uncomfortable, to deal with you crying. All you want to do is talk about your child that died and how this, that. And so they've tried. They have really tried. But you know how it is. If you've not really been in those shoes,
no, you can't really understand.
Death of any kind is uncomfortable. But death of a child, like 10 times more uncomfortable. That's for, and this is me just being how do I put it now? Not trying to point fingers at anybody, but I found that sometimes and not just loss of a child, when someone goes through a type of loss or someone dies, somehow at the back of your mind, I don't know why, we think it's contagious. So you're like, let me just shift. Maybe it's a child that will die next. I don't know.
Let them not pass it on to me.
Let them not pass it on to me. So you find your level.
Wow.
For some, it's just because they don't know what to say to you. They don't know how to. It's tough. It's tough for you as the griever. It's also tough for the friend. It is tough for your friend. So a lot of friendships that have gone sour because both parties also are probably grieving. The friend is probably grieving for you, but doesn't know how to help you. And so she feels like giving you space to grieve alone, it will help you. But it's a vicious cycle. So you're upset with your friend and your friend isn't there for you. Your friend feels like you need to give her space. Before you know it, the friendship has disintegrated.
That's right.
So it is painful on all counts, but it happens, right? But I think the griever needs to get to a point where it's hard to say this, but now in hindsight, is not taking it personally. If that person was your best friend, it's not like I want to believe 90% of the time didn't want to be there for you. They just don't know how to be there for you. So the griever needs to be gracious in their grief. Now, this might mean that your friendship, the dynamics of your friendship will change, but you need to be gracious, right? And even if that friend was not supportive, somehow God brings new people into your life.
Absolutely.
That can handle this new part of you. And again, thinking about it now, because this friend has always known you to be this maybe jovial person, and now you're yourself, and they don't know how to handle you. The new person who's coming didn't know you when you are this jovial person. They are meeting you in your new state. So they can easily accept you. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yes.
This new version.
Yeah, exactly.
But your old friends might not be able to accept the new version of you at that point. So I think we need to be gracious. Grief changes friendships on so many levels. It makes some closer. Some will no longer, some friends will no longer be close. Your best friend might no longer be your best friend. And some new friendships will emerge. I think it's about just embracing all of it, the pain, because first you're grieving the loss of your child. Now you're about to grieve the loss of a friend as well, which can be more painful. Because I heard someone say once that our brain and hearts don't know the difference between a romantic or platonic relationship. And it can be very painful when a friend is not there. But by embracing it all and seeing that, wow, this is the new me, this is the new journey I'm on. I need to be gracious. I need to embrace new friends that are coming my way. And with the ones that have evolved, I need to accept it. I mean, some might later on, you might later on be close, maybe when you've healed and all. But for the season you are in, just take it and flow with it.
Awesome.
That's super.
So what will you say in a situation whereby, okay, let's say this is for your friend, but for in-laws where, you know, the only time they remember you, maybe you lost your spouse, for example. The only time they remember you is when they need something. What will you say to such a person? How can they, should the person shut them down, shut them out? Should the person express, don't contact me again? How can a person deal with such?
Again, it is because as a society, we don't know how to deal with grief, right? So I'm not trying to make excuses for the in-laws, you know, like, because it is painful. It's painful when the in-law doesn't remember the anniversary of your child's, you know, their birthday, or they don't even mention the child's name again, ever. And you're like, oh, this child would live, you know. All of those things are painful. All of those things are painful. But look, if we open this up a bit, it's about saying what is within my control. I can't control how my in-laws are grieving because they're probably also grieving. Maybe not, again, we all grieve differently. They might not grieve as much as you, but they're also grieving the loss of maybe their child or their grandchild, right? But because they're not grieving like you or calling you every day, doesn't mean that they're not also in pain, right? But it's also about saying what is within my control. I can't control that my in-laws don't remember the birthday of my child or the anniversary of my child's death or anything. I can't control that. What can I control? I can only control myself. I can only control my emotions. So you need to decide what boundaries do you want to put in place. How do you want to treat this relationship? Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. I still feel being gracious will help you. When you come from a place of love, it will help you deal with all these other dynamics of friends and in-laws. Because trust me, people will say things to hurt you. People will say things like, are you the only one? Move on. Let the child go. Not just in-laws, even your own parents will say things to you. Right? It's about saying, okay, I'm going to treat, yes, it's, even though I am in pain, even though I am in grieving, I am going to grieve graciously. I'm going to grieve in love. Because by the time you add all these extra bits, all this person said this to me, I'm angry. This person said this to me, I'm angry. Wow, that's just going to be lots of negative emotions. So you're dealing with your grief, you're trying to navigate that, but also put boundaries in place that will, if it means, for me, I can be I can be drastic. If it means blocking some people for a while, please block them. Give yourself permission. I blocked my parents when they were. I hope they are not. But there was a time when I thought their wahala was so much, I just blocked them. Now my mental health.
Mental health.
Mental health. Let's prioritize it.
After a while, obviously, it was for a short while, you know.
Yes, I
So
know.
if you need blocking people for a while, please do. If it means going off social media, going off WhatsApp, which was what I did. I went off WhatsApp for a while just so that I could deal with the grief without the other extra bits of this person is calling to say, shake body, you shouldn't be crying anymore. Don't put up your son's picture. All of those things. These are some of the things I get. So without having to deal with those, I want to be able to heal so that even when you come with your extra comments, I'm not hurt. Because think about it, when you have a wound and someone pours salt on it, it's more painful. To treat that wound on its own, so that even if someone comes and pours salt, it doesn't hurt you.
Exactly.
Like when you're still trying to deal with the grief.
Powerful example.
And someone said, I've witnessed this with couples suffering from infertility. Yes, that's out. Okay, we have a question, just so you know, our viewers are trying to get as much as they can from you as well. Okay. Writing or journaling our thoughts helps to deal with grief. What other practical ways can we employ in dealing with loss?
Fantastic. So I think some ways that we can deal with loss is, first of all, start with acknowledging your feelings. I think that's the basic tip that I will give. Always acknowledge your feelings at every point in time. So even if your feelings are changing per second, acknowledge them. Oh, I feel sad right now. Oh, I feel happy right now. Acknowledge them. Name your feelings. I think a lot of people need to go for emotional intelligence courses or training, not just for loss, but for everything in life. It is because we don't want to acknowledge our feelings, or we think that feeling a negative emotion or a sad emotion, right, is bad. You know, we talk positive confession, you know, it's love and all of those things. But if someone says, "How are you?" I'm not okay right now, but I will be fine. That's better than just saying I'm fine. You've acknowledged that you're not, you know, you're not okay right now, but you're ending with something positive. I will be fine. But right now, I'm not okay. Right now, I'm feeling a bit sad. Right now, I'm feeling angry. So acknowledging those feelings, it helps you know that you're not shoving it down. You're not shoving down those thoughts or those feelings. Also, another way to do that is by taking the right action steps to recover from your grief. And this might involve, excuse me, this might involve professional help, right? Such as working with a grief recovery specialist like myself.
Absolutely.
Because that will really help. It will help you take the right actions. You have the right tools to be able to allowing people to grieve with you. There's another myth that, you know, grieve in isolation. If people want to come and sit with you quietly, let them. I mean, sometimes, of course, you just want to be by yourself, which is fine.
Yes.
But if there are people who are reaching out, don't shut them out. It's hard because there are days where you just want to shut everybody out. But when you can genuinely see that this person cares, and if they're not here to tell me how to feel, they are not analyzing how I'm feeling, they are not judging how I'm feeling, let those people, there will be few. Because most people, all they want to do is ask you questions and judge you or analyze what happened or give you answers. No. But if you find someone that genuinely will sit with you in your grief, please let them in, because it can be lonely. Grieving can be lonely. So let them in. Allow your support system to come in when they want. Then I'll definitely recommend the Grief Recovery Handbook.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
So how can they get that?
How can they get this?
You can get it on Amazon, but I always try and recommend you getting it from the Grief Recovery website. So I can give you the link to that.
Beautiful.
This is the handbook we use. So for people who come take the program, we use the handbook with them in conjunction with, I mean, the main program it's all in this book. But then having that specialist who will not judge you, analyze you, criticize you, but is there to help you walk through the steps in the book. It's a game changer. It's a game changer.
Phenomenal. So what would you say in a situation by maybe somebody lost a loved one, and something that happened that she's feeling like she either didn't listen to him while he was complaining, maybe the person was suicidal, or she felt like she was played an active role, he or she now played an active role in driving this person to, losing, and then that guilt is not helping them to move on. They're holding on to that guilt. They're trying to punish themselves. What would you say to such a person?
Okay, so first of all, again, another plug-in for the When Life Stops podcast. We have the whole episode on subject guilt. So please, it's like episode 4. So please listen to that.
Awesome.
But what I'll say now is that is it's a difficult feeling to have that I can't even begin to imagine, when you feel like you are the cause of this person's death or whatever it is. But the question I always ask when people, when my clients tell me, oh, I feel so guilty, maybe if I had done this differently, or if I had done that differently, the person won't have died. The question I always ask is, what does it mean to be guilty? It means that you intended to cause harm, right? You wanted to cause harm. That was your intention.
Wow.
I asked them, was that your intention? Was that your intention to cause any harm? More often than not, the answer will be no. So acknowledging that you are not guilty because it was not your intention to cause them harm. Just seeing it from that perspective.
Wow, that's an empowering question.
Yes.
Because for me, I felt guilty when my baby died. He had been showing, he wasn't breathing so well. And we were taken him to the hospital like a week before, and the doctor said to us that, oh, it's just a cold. If it happens again, just run a bath for him to open up his airways, So when I saw him struggling with his breathing, I was like, okay, should we go back? And I was thinking of, okay, I've got 3 other kids. The time before that we went to the hospital, they admitted us into the hospital. So I was already thinking of, okay, how am I going to combine everything, right? So I did what the doctor, this was me in the bath, running a bath for him and running the shower. I was like, should I take him to the hospital? What should I do? I was still thinking. And it was a Sunday. And I thought, okay, you know what? Let's go to church. Church, at least you get healed in church, you'll be fine. And if it's not better, then we'll take him to the hospital. We got back from church, put him down, and he didn't wake up from his nap. Can you imagine the guilt I felt? I was like, why didn't I just take him to the hospital? And I beat myself up for months. It me once. So what if you had taken him to the hospital and he still died? You would have told yourself, maybe I should have gone to church.
Exactly.
Right? So that's you blaming yourself and saying, it's because you didn't take him to the hospital that was why he died. First of all, you taking him, you were doing the best you knew at the time. The best decision you knew to make then was to go to church. Right? So if the best decision you had made was to go to the hospital and he still died, you made the best decision at the time. My intention was never to harm my baby. So that was what freed me from the guilt that, it was because I didn't do this. So that question I feel would help you see things from a different perspective. And then it's about forgiving yourself and saying, okay, maybe, I felt I did this, but I need to forgive myself for this.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so I was going to ask the question I had in mind. The next follow-up question to that is, what about a situation by this person has moved on? Well, it's no longer feeling guilty. That's what I mean by moving on. And then now trying to get into a relationship, but she's afraid or he's afraid that the same thing might happen again. What about if I get into a relationship and then I lose him again? Would they not say that I have a negative omen following me about? And because of that, they are stopping themselves from enjoying life, enjoying love again.
Just on the surface, there are probably some emotional communication that has still not been delivered. They're probably still blaming themselves, or there's still something that they haven't dealt with. That's part of what grief recovery helps you to do. We have a tool that helps you, even when things come up again, like, oh my God, what if this happens again? Because remember what I said about recovery. Recovery is not having that fear of having to live, a meaningful life. So that means that they've not fully recovered. And they've probably not taken some action steps they need to help them know that what happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen again. Because guess what? It's usually self-fulfilling prophecies. When that's what you keep thinking, and then if it happens again, like you see, I said so.
Exactly.
Complete with what happened in the past, you'll be in a much better space, and those kind of thoughts wouldn't be going through you. Shouldn't be going through your mind.
Wonderful.
Fear is torment, because, like I said, my son is a twin, so sometimes I'll look at his twin sister and think, is she going to die in her sleep too? And it's still symptoms of unresolved grief, because you're projecting what happened in the past and thinking it will happen again. So I'll go check on her and see. I hope she's still breathing because I was afraid that she would also just die.
Wow, fantastic. Please, if you have any question, kindly just ask the question. Yep. Post your question. We'll be happy, and if you can share it, go ahead.
Wow, this is so.
I think there was a question from Coach Tony.
There was earlier. I thought you had dealt with it, but I'll go back to it. So I think it's.
Was it this one?
No,
the one about a close friend of mine had a terrible loss.
Yes, I'm going there. There we are. A close friend of mine had a terrible loss, and I was supporting her with everything. But I was going through a lot as well, and I struggled with the fact that our relationship became about her only. There's a follow-up question. Yes, I needed her as well, and it was painful that because my struggles were not as bad as hers, of course, she had just gone through death, she was not reciprocating support. How can one deal with this?
Okay. Wow. Fantastic question. I think in that type of scenario, again, not to compare losses or anything, one can deal with it by looking for support from someone else. Because at that point, death is like trying to get support from someone who's in a coma or someone whose leg has been broken and is in the hospital. Right? So it is at that point that you need to show up with them. Yes, you're also going through your own drama and own stuff. That's what friendship means. And again, this is no judgment, on Coach Tony or anything, but I'm just saying, because I always try to look at it from, because emotional pain, right? Because we can't see emotional pain, we don't sometimes give it enough attention like physical pain.
Yes.
If, for example, someone is lying in the hospital and they are fighting for their lives, I wouldn't be, even if I'm going through my own drama, I wouldn't be expecting them to reciprocate. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I wouldn't, because at that point, it's like all attention is on them. We need to get them. So when someone goes through death, again, because it's only when you've gone through something similar that you kind of have an idea of what that person has gone through, right? But when you haven't, even though you empathize with them and you feel for them, you will never know how that person, death changes you. And then not to talk about the death of a child. I'm not sure what loss Tony's friend went through. But the point I'm trying to make is that at that point, my suggestion would be to try and get some support from somewhere else and not lay that on your friend who has gone through a death to help you. Because that way it would help you still have a good relationship with that friend without feeling bad that they didn't support you because you were not there. Because at that point, we are trying to, I'm trying to imagine me when my son just died and someone came to me and said I wasn't there for them. In my mind, I'll be like, even me, I wasn't there for myself. I was all over the place. I wasn't straight. I felt like I was in a dark hole. So I wasn't even in a position to help anybody else. Right? So, and I get it. Everyone is going through different things. And that's why I said graciously. And I feel like earlier we deal with our grief, and the earlier we heal, we can then go back to being great support systems to our friends.
Wow.
But the person is in, grief mode, which I always compare it, and maybe that's not a good comparison, but I always say it as person is like hospital mode, they are bleeding, they are nearly dying, they're in the hospital. I don't think I would expect them to do anything for me at that point. Later on, of course, when they're feeling better, they will now go back to, and that's and that's why a lot of relationships have problems now because of expectations or not thinking that this person should have been there for me, but they were not there. It's probably because they also had their own thing going on. And I applaud you, Tony, for even being there for your friend.
Honestly,
who are going through.
Absolutely.
So I applaud you for that, definitely.
And what if the friend takes too long to grieve?
So again, we can't put a timeline on grief.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Hmm.
However, what we can do is show people that they are, and again, okay, and I say this carefully, not show people, but things like, and I guess that's why I go about shouting about grief. Because in my head, I'm thinking, if I hadn't grieved properly, if I hadn't recovered from my loss, I'll probably still be here grieving in a very unhealthy way. Probably all my friends would have disappeared by now, because all I would want to talk about, all I could talk about then was my son that died. Right? So it's about saying, okay, there's a better way to heal. Point people to grief recovery.
Absolutely.
It helped me. It changed my life. I mean, grief recovery is the only scientific evidence-based program that we know that has helped grievers heal properly.
Wow.
And this is not to say there are no other ways that people can, and that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is what I know, what helps me. And this is the gospel that I'm preaching now.
Awesome.
If it's, and I'm the type of person I am, if something has worked for me, I want to shout about it to the rooftop. Something as, you know, that can change a destiny, a life of someone who thought she was finished because her son died. But here I am. I'm able to talk about it. I'm able to help others because I went through the journey of taking the right action steps to heal.
Wow. So just ask you the final question, then we'll get you to talk about what you do, where they can find you, how they can follow you. What advice will you give to a couple, maybe to someone who lost his spouse and, we want to move on, or let me just say, in one word, what will you say to a spouse, to someone who lost a loved one, in terms of a husband or his wife? What will you say to that person in terms of moving on? Let's say, in one sentence.
So, again, I'll tell them to acknowledge how they feel. Don't bury it. Don't bury how you're feeling, because that is, and again, this is more than a sentence, but accumulated unresolved grief is why a lot of people have not been able to move forward, have not been able to manifest their big dreams and do great things. It's usually because of unresolved grief. So if you can raise up your hand to say, I need help, and not pretend that you're fine, I think just acknowledging that, man, I'm still struggling, I need help. I think that would open up that would open up a conversation to healing.
Awesome. And if that's you, there's nothing to be shameful. It's not a shameful thing. Seeking help is what strong people do. It's not what weak people do. Because a strong person knows their capacity and they know where to get help. And that's why they are able to, like, there's a quote that we heard from Michael Jordan. He said, it takes one person to win a match. It takes a team to win a tournament. So when you know where to get help, you tell something about your own person, about your own character. Thank you so much for being on our platform. Thank you.
Keeping it real.
Keeping it real, going to places and bringing stories from your own personal life. This is really an engaging and a practical session. And
it's obvious you've been through grief recovery, because you're able to talk about it, and then there's that desire to get others out of that place.
Absolutely.
Which is brilliant.
The manner in which you deconstructed the process was phenomenal, honestly. It's really great.
Practical.
Yeah. So how do they contact you? What's your handles? Tell us about your handles. We talked about your podcast, so they know where to find you on podcast. Do you have a group? Do you have a program that you can use to help people out of who are going through this kind of? Tell us.
Yeah, so if you go to my website, detolaamure.com. If you want to see specifically on grief, just put /grieve, and then you would see my program on there. It's a grief recovery program.
Awesome.
One-to-ones is over a period of 7 weeks, and the group program is over a period of 8 weeks. And usually by the end of the program, all of my clients, and including myself, have said they feel much better afterwards.
Wow.
Able to complete with all of those, emotional pain that they've been feeling. And it's usually just the beginning of their journey, because now they're able to see light at the end of the tunnel. They're able to have hope again, because
Oh.
most people when they're grieving, they lose hope.
Yes.
So yeah, you can just go to my website, detolaamure.com. On Instagram, I also use the same handle, Detola Amure. Where else am I on? Facebook. LinkedIn, yeah, Detola Amure as well. So I think once you type in Detola Amure, you find
you on LinkedIn. Yeah, it's easy to find that everywhere. So same handle. What about your YouTube? You have a YouTube channel?
Yes, YouTube. Okay, my YouTube handle. I think I'll probably have to give you the link for that because
that's fine. That's fine.
So,
wow, thank you so much.
It's been enlightening, it's been revealing, it's been very practical. Thank you for doing this,
and thank you all of you who joined us,
who engaged.
Really appreciate you.
At some point we were losing touch, but then we got there in the end.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you, Thelma, Denike, and all of you. Yeah, we appreciate you.
A lot of my ladies on here. Shout out to you,
Shout out to all of you. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, we'll see you again until you come your way again. Let's do it the way they do it on TV. Bye-bye.
For us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.